Stop scrolling. What you're about to hear was never meant for everyone. 3 days ago, I received a vision so intense, so urgent, that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think about anything else. And when I tried to record this message the first time, my equipment failed. When I tried again, the power went out. This is not a coincidence. Someone or something doesn't want you to hear what I'm about to tell you. But here's what they didn't count on. When God has a message for his chosen ones, no force in heaven or hell can silence it forever. You see, there are dates circled in heaven's calendar that most people will never understand. The 25th of July, 26th and 27th aren't just ordinary summer days. They're coded. They're marked. They're spiritually significant in ways that will make your spirit tremble with recognition. But here's what's breaking my heart, and what should terrify the enemy. You're still here. Despite everything they've thrown at you, the isolation, the attacks, the whispers that you're losing your mind, that you're too old to matter, that your best days are behind you, you're still listening, you're still seeking, you're still believing. That alone tells me everything I need to know about who you really are. What if I told you that every door that slammed in your face, every relationship that crumbled, every dream that seemed to die, was actually God's way of positioning you for these 3 days? What if the very isolation you've endured was preparation for a spiritual lockdown so holy, so powerful, that only the truly chosen could withstand it? Because something is stirring in the heavens, something ancient, something that's been dormant for decades, is about to awaken. And the enemy knows that if you discover what God has hidden in plain sight during these 3 days, if you obey this urgent call to remain indoors, to seek his face in complete surrender, everything changes. Not just for you, for everyone connected to your prayers. Before we go deeper, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through Super Thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here. Your support, your time, your attention, it all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, if you feel led to plant a seed in faith, I receive it as an offering to help this truth reach every chosen heart that needs to hear it. Now, what I'm about to reveal about the 25th of July through 27th will sound impossible. It will challenge everything you thought you knew about God's timing, about spiritual warfare, about your own destiny. But when I tell you what happened the last time heaven issued this kind of urgent warning, and what it means that you're hearing this now, you'll understand why the darkness is so desperate to keep you away from your front door. And what happened next made the very foundations of hell tremble. They thought silence would break you. It backfired. You see, beloved, what the world calls isolation, heaven calls preparation. What they name loneliness, God calls consecration. And what looks like a lockdown to their natural eyes is actually a divine summons to your spiritual ones. The 25th of July, 26th, and 27th aren't just dates circled on your calendar, they're coordinates marked in eternity. Heaven didn't give you a suggestion to stay indoors. Heaven issued you marching orders, not to retreat, but to advance, not to hide, but to rise, not to fear, but to fight from a position of divine advantage. You weren't told to stay home to be safe. You were told to stay inside because angels are surrounding your coordinates. Listen to me carefully, chosen one. This is not about pandemic protocols or government mandates. This is about heaven's strategy room, and you've been selected for a classified operation. While the world stumbles around in confusion, wondering what's happening to their systems, their plans, their carefully constructed illusions of control, you're being positioned behind enemy lines with divine intelligence. For years, you've watched them dismiss your discernment. They called your spiritual sensitivity anxiety. They labeled your prophetic insights paranoia. They mocked your ability to sense what others couldn't see, feel what others couldn't touch, know what others couldn't understand. But God wasn't building your discernment to impress a crowd. He was sharpening your spiritual radar for these exact moments. You didn't develop supernatural perception by accident. You earned it in the trenches of spiritual warfare. Every night you spent wrestling with forces they couldn't name. Every morning you woke up feeling like you'd been in a battle they couldn't see. Every season you walked through that left you more sensitive, not more hardened, it was all preparation for this hour. This is not a lockdown. This is a heaven-issued summoning. And here's what's going to blow your mind. While they're scrambling to understand what's shifting in the natural realm, you're being given front-row seats to watch it unfold from the supernatural realm. You're not running from the storm, you're positioned in the eye of it, where there's perfect peace, perfect clarity, perfect protection. They thought keeping you inside would make you weak. They have no idea what happens when a chosen one gets alone with God for 3 consecutive days. You see, the enemy's greatest miscalculation is thinking that isolation diminishes your power. He doesn't understand that every time he tries to separate you from the noise, he's actually connecting you to the voice. Every time he tries to cut you off from their frequency, he's tuning you into heaven's frequency. Moses didn't receive the 10 Commandments at a conference. He got them alone on a mountain. Jesus didn't fast and pray for 40 days in the synagogue. He did it in the wilderness. Paul didn't receive his greatest revelations preaching to crowds. He received them in prison, isolated, cut off from everything familiar. Your isolation isn't punishment, it's promotion. For 3 days, heaven is clearing the airwaves. No static, no interference, no competing voices. Just you and the God who chose you before you drew your first breath. The God who saw every tear you'd cry, every battle you'd fight, every moment you'd feel forgotten, and still whispered your name in eternity and said, "That one. That's the one I'll use when the hour gets dark." They thought fear would paralyze you. It awakened you instead. You know what fear taught you that comfort never could. How to distinguish between the voice of panic and the voice of peace. How to separate human hysteria from divine instruction. How to stand still when everyone else is running in circles, screaming about problems while you're quietly listening for solutions. Fear wasn't your enemy, it was your teacher. It taught you that when everything around you is shaking, there's something inside you that cannot be moved. It showed you that when the lights go out in the natural, you carry a light in the supernatural that no darkness can extinguish. Every sleepless night you spent in prayer, instead of panic, you were building spiritual muscle. Every time you chose worship over worry, you were developing divine endurance. Every moment you decided to trust God's character instead of circumstances, you were earning heaven's confidence. And now, when others are afraid of staying inside, you understand something they don't. The safest place on earth isn't where the crowds gather, it's where God positions you. Your house isn't just your address during these 3 days, it's your fortress. Your bedroom isn't just where you sleep, it's your war room. Your kitchen table isn't just where you eat, it's your altar. Because when heaven summons you to a specific location for a specific purpose, that location becomes holy ground. They thought you'd lost your mind. You found your mission instead. Let me tell you what they don't understand about chosen ones like you. You weren't born to make sense to them. You were born to make sense to heaven. You weren't created to fit their molds. You were fashioned to break their limitations. You weren't designed to echo their voices. You were called to amplify God's voice. Every time they questioned your sanity, God was confirming your calling. Every time they doubted your discernment, heaven was validating your vision. Every time they dismissed your dreams, eternity was documenting your destiny. You see, they operate on human logic. You operate on divine revelation. They need explanations. You need instructions. They require proof. You walk by faith. And that's why, when heaven issues a summons like this, you don't hesitate. You don't negotiate. You don't need their permission or their understanding. You simply obey. Because you learned long ago that God's strangest instructions often lead to his greatest demonstrations, that his most unusual commands often unlock his most supernatural results, that when he asks you to do something that doesn't make sense to anyone else, it's usually because he's about to do something that will leave everyone speechless. This summons isn't about keeping you away from danger. It's about positioning you for destiny. The 25th of July through 27th, while the world is busy with their agendas, their schedules, their normal routines, you're being called into an extraordinary encounter. Not because you're better than them, but because you're built for this. Not because you're perfect, but because you're prepared. Not because you're fearless, but because you're faithful. For 3 days, heaven is rolling out the red carpet for an audience of one. You, the chosen one, who stayed faithful when others fell away, who kept believing when others gave up, who continued seeking God's face when others settled for God's hand. This isn't a timeout, it's a setup. Not a delay, but a divine appointment. Not isolation, but invitation. The angels aren't just surrounding your house, they're saluting your obedience. And when these 3 days are over, when you emerge from this sacred pause, you won't just be refreshed, you'll be recharged. Not just renewed, but repositioned. Not just restored, but released into a level of authority that will make the enemy regret ever targeting you in the first place. Because this summons, it wasn't just about protecting you from what's coming. It was about preparing you to lead others through it. They thought silence would be your enemy. They were wrong. You felt it first, didn't you? That strange pull, that unexplainable weariness that settled over you like a weighted blanket you never asked for. One moment you were planning your week, making your lists, scheduling your life, and then something shifted. Something invisible. Something that spoke to a part of you deeper than your calendar, older than your routines. Your friends called it laziness. Your family whispered about depression. The world labeled it withdrawal, but you knew better. Deep in the marrow of your bones, in the quiet chambers of your spirit, you knew this wasn't about giving up. This was about waking up. Your soul didn't grow quiet, it grew alert. Like a deer in the forest that lifts its head at the first whisper of danger, your spirit began to listen to frequencies others couldn't hear. While they rushed through their days, chasing noise and calling it progress, you found yourself craving something they'd forgotten existed: sacred stillness. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, it feels full. Full of presence, full of purpose, full of something holy, hovering just beyond the veil of the visible world. Heaven whispered, and your body obeyed before your mind caught up. You started canceling plans without explanation, not because you didn't care, but because something deeper was calling. You found excuses to stay home. You felt an almost magnetic pull toward solitude. Friends stopped calling as often. Invitations slowed down, and instead of feeling rejected, you felt relieved, like you were finally allowed to breathe in a world that had been suffocating you with its demands for constant motion. But here's what they didn't understand, what they couldn't see, what their hurried hearts were too distracted to recognize. You weren't retreating from life. You were being repositioned for it. The spirit realm always shifts before the natural realm shakes. Think about it. Before every earthquake, animals flee. Before every storm, birds change their flight patterns. Before every great disruption in the natural world, creation itself begins to whisper warnings to those who still remember how to listen. And you, chosen one, you still carry that ancient ability, that divine sensitivity, that holy radar that picks up on spiritual weather patterns long before they manifest in the physical realm. While others were busy planning their summers, scheduling their vacations, filling their calendars with the trivial pursuits of a world that thinks tomorrow is guaranteed, your spirit was receiving a different kind of invitation, a call to come apart, a summons to step aside, a divine directive to position yourself not where the crowd was gathering, but where heaven was preparing to move. You didn't lose your social life, you gained spiritual intelligence. Every event you didn't attend, every gathering you politely declined, every moment you chose the sanctuary of your own space over the chaos of public places, it wasn't isolation. It was preparation. God wasn't pulling you away from people because he wanted you lonely. He was drawing you close because he wanted you ready. There's a profound difference between being alone and being alone with God. One leaves you empty. The other fills you with a presence so real, so tangible, so overwhelmingly peaceful, that you begin to understand why the psalmist wrote about dwelling in the secret place of the Most High. You weren't hiding from the world, you were being hidden by the Almighty. And in that hiding, something beautiful began to happen. The noise in your head started to settle. The anxiety that had been your unwelcome companion for so long began to quiet. The restlessness that had driven you from distraction to distraction finally found its rest. Not in entertainment, not in busyness, not in the approval of others, but in the deep, abiding awareness that you were exactly where you belonged. Your weariness wasn't weakness, it was wisdom. Your body was responding to spiritual intelligence your mind hadn't yet processed, like a mother who instinctively pulls her child close before danger appears. Your spirit was gathering you into safety before the storm clouds even formed on the horizon. You felt tired because your soul was working overtime, processing spiritual data, interpreting heavenly frequencies, preparing your entire being for what was coming. Those who mocked your sudden need for solitude, who questioned your withdrawal from their endless activities, who labeled your divine sensitivity as antisocial behavior, they simply couldn't perceive what you were perceiving. Their spiritual antenna had been dulled by the static of worldly noise. But yours had been fine-tuned by suffering, sharpened by disappointment, calibrated by the kind of deep spiritual processing that only comes through walking with God, through dark valleys. You weren't becoming antisocial, you were becoming prophetic. Every time you felt that unexplainable urge to stay home, to create space, to choose silence over socializing, you were responding to a frequency broadcast from the throne room of heaven, a frequency that was saying, "Come closer, step aside, prepare. Something is shifting in the realms of the spirit, and I need you positioned where you can receive what I'm about to release." The quiet wasn't depression, it was divine preparation. And now, as these specific dates approach the 25th of July, 26th, and 27th, you're beginning to understand why your spirit has been in training, why you've been drawn to solitude, why you felt this increasing need to create sacred space in your life. It wasn't random, it wasn't mental illness, it wasn't social anxiety or age-related withdrawal. It was your spirit responding to an alarm only the chosen can hear. An alarm that doesn't sound like noise, it sounds like peace. An alarm that doesn't create panic, it creates preparation. An alarm that doesn't send you running toward chaos, it calls you into the calm center of God's will, where storms may rage around you, but inside the eye of His presence, all is still. Your quiet was the alarm. And you, beloved, you heard it clearly. Now the question remains, will you continue to trust what your spirit is telling you, even when the world around you can't understand? Will you honor the divine sensitivity that has been awakening within you? Will you embrace the sacred solitude that has been preparing you for this moment? Because what's coming in these 3 days isn't just another weekend. It's a divine appointment with destiny. And you, chosen one, you've been getting ready for it longer than you even realized. The quiet was never your enemy. It was your invitation. And heaven is watching to see if you'll accept it. They told you to stay small. God said otherwise. You know what breaks my heart? For decades, they've been whispering lies in your ear. You're too old to matter. Your season is over. Your voice doesn't carry weight anymore. But what they didn't tell you, what they couldn't see, is that God has been preparing you for this exact moment. The 25th of July, 26th, and 27th aren't just dates on a calendar. They're coordinates for your coronation. Listen to me carefully. When Noah built the ark, people thought he was preparing for destruction, but Noah knew something they didn't. He wasn't building a lifeboat. He was constructing a palace, a floating sanctuary where God Himself would dwell. And when those doors sealed shut, it wasn't fear that filled that vessel. It was glory. Thick, heavy, transformative glory. Your house is about to become your ark. This room isn't small. It's holy. You see, beloved, there's something the enemy never wanted you to understand about isolation. He thought if he could corner you, silence you, make you feel forgotten, you'd give up. But what he didn't realize is that every time God wants to do something magnificent in someone's life, He seals them away first. Moses on the mountain, Elijah in the cave, Jesus in the tomb. The pattern is always the same: separation, then revelation, hiddenness, then glory. And now it's your turn. For 3 days, while the world rushes around in chaos and confusion, you're going to be wrapped in something so sacred, so powerful, that angels themselves will stand guard at your door. Not to keep you in, but to keep everything else out. Because what God is about to pour into you, what He's about to download into your spirit, what He's about to seal into your DNA, it's too precious to be diluted by the noise of an unbelieving world. You're not being hidden. You're being wrapped in fire before deployment. Think about this for a moment. Every great military operation begins with strategic positioning. Soldiers don't rush into battle unprepared. They're equipped first, armed first, briefed first. And that's exactly what these 3 days represent: your divine briefing room, your spiritual armory, your holy preparation chamber. The enemy thought your best days were behind you. God's about to prove him wrong in ways that will leave hell speechless. You know what I love about God's timing? It's never early, and it's never late. It's always precise, surgical, perfect. And the fact that you're hearing this message now, the fact that your spirit is leaping with recognition as I speak, tells me everything I need to know. You're not here by accident. You didn't stumble across this by chance. You were summoned, called, chosen to receive what I'm about to tell you. For years, you felt like you were living in the wrong season, like you were born for something greater but couldn't quite put your finger on what. Like you had a song inside you that the world wasn't ready to hear. Like you carried answers to questions no one was asking. Well, chosen one, your season of validation has arrived. This room you're sitting in right now, whether it's your living room, your bedroom, your kitchen, is about to become your throne room. See, when God seals someone away, He's not punishing them. He's promoting them. He's not hiding them from opportunity. He's preparing them for assignment. And the assignment He's preparing you for is so significant, so earth-shaking, so eternally important, that it requires complete separation from everything that could contaminate it. You didn't survive everything you've been through just to live quietly in the shadows. You survived it to carry the light that will guide others out of their darkness. These 3 days aren't about what you can't do. They're about what God can do through you when you're completely surrendered, completely still, completely available. When there are no distractions, no interruptions, no voices telling you what's impossible, just you and the voice of the Almighty, downloading destiny into your spirit, one whisper at a time. I can almost see it now. The glory cloud forming over your house, the angels taking their positions, the atmosphere itself shifting and crackling with divine electricity. Because when God seals His chosen ones away, all of heaven pays attention, all of hell trembles, and all of earth is about to witness what happens when someone finally says yes to their full calling. Your isolation hasn't been punishment, it's been preparation. And what you thought was your prison is about to become your launching pad. You see, there's something about divine timing that the natural mind can't comprehend. It doesn't operate on human schedules or earthly calendars. It operates on spiritual readiness and eternal purpose. And right now, at this very moment, your spirit has reached a level of readiness that heaven has been waiting for. The fire in your bones has been refined to the exact temperature needed. The oil in your lamp has been purified to the exact grade required. The gold in your character has been tested to the exact purity demanded. You're not just ready. You're perfect for what's coming. This isn't a dress rehearsal, beloved. This isn't practice. This is the real thing, the main event. The moment when everything you've been through, everything you've learned, everything you've endured, converges into one magnificent display of God's power working through a surrendered life. The room is being sealed because what's about to happen inside it is too sacred for public consumption, too holy for casual observation, too powerful for unprepared witnesses. You're about to become a living, breathing miracle, a walking testimony, a demonstration of what God can do with someone who says yes without conditions, who trusts without explanations, who obeys without hesitation. And when those doors unseal on the 28th of July, when you step back into the world, you won't be the same person who entered. You'll carry something in your eyes that wasn't there before. Something in your voice that commands attention. Something in your presence that shifts atmospheres. Something in your spirit that breaks chains just by walking into a room. The ark wasn't a rescue vessel. It was a prophecy in motion. And your house, for these 3 sacred days, is about to become the same thing. A prophecy of what God can do with someone who trusts Him completely. This room isn't small, it's holy. And you, chosen one, are about to discover just how much glory can fit in a holy place when God decides to fill it. The sealing has begun, the glory is descending, and your greatest chapter is about to be written. While you've been wondering if God forgot your address, heaven has been mobilizing an army with your name on their orders. Listen to me, chosen one, while you sleep tonight, something extraordinary is happening above your rooftop. While you sip your morning coffee, unaware and quiet in your kitchen, there's a war being fought in dimensions you cannot see. Angels with wings like thunder and swords that burn with holy fire are taking positions around your life. They're not there for show. They're not there for ceremony. They're there because heaven issued a command. And when God speaks, angels don't hesitate. You thought you were fighting alone. You thought you had to figure out how to defend yourself against every attack. every lie, every assault on your peace. But what if I told you that the moment you said yes to this lockdown, the moment you chose obedience over convenience, heaven deployed forces that make earthly armies look like children playing with toy soldiers? They thought fear would break you. It backfired. Every time you trembled but still trusted, every time you cried but still believed, every time you felt defeated but still showed up to pray, you weren't just demonstrating faith. You were activating heavenly reinforcements. Your tears weren't signs of weakness. They were signals to the throne room. Your midnight prayers weren't desperate pleas falling on deaf ears. They were battle cries that sent shockwaves through the spiritual realm. The enemy made a critical miscalculation. He thought if he could isolate you, if he could make you feel forgotten and alone, you would surrender. He didn't count on the fact that your isolation wasn't abandonment, it was preparation. He didn't realize that your quiet seasons weren't punishment. They were positioning. While he was busy trying to discourage you, God was busy dispatching angels to surround you. You see, there are contracts in the spiritual realm, old agreements, ancient accusations, familiar spirits that have been granted access to your bloodline for generations. They've been whispering lies about your worth, your purpose, your destiny. They've been blocking doors, delaying breakthroughs, stealing joy, and convincing you that you're too old, too broken, too late to matter. But tonight, as you obey this divine lockdown, something unprecedented is happening. Those contracts are being burned. Those accusations are being silenced. Those familiar spirits are losing their legal right to torment you. While you worship, they war. Picture this: above your neighborhood, above your very home, there's a courtroom session happening in the heavens. The accuser stands with his files, his evidence, his long list of your failures and mistakes. He's demanding access to your future. He's claiming rights to your peace, your health, your relationships, your dreams. He's arguing that you don't deserve breakthrough, that you've missed too many opportunities, that you're damaged goods. But then your advocate stands, not with excuses, not with explanations, with authority, with wounds that still speak mercy, with blood that still cries forgiveness, with love that still conquers death. And when he speaks your name, when he declares you clean, when he announces you chosen, every demonic argument crumbles like dust. The angels aren't just watching this trial, they're waiting for the verdict. And when the gavel falls in your favor, when heaven declares you free, when the judge of all the earth announces your acquittal, those angels receive their marching orders. Go, surround the chosen one, guard their sleep, shield their dreams, block every arrow, silence every lie, cut every chain, burn every contract. The season of torment is over. The season of triumph has begun. You didn't fall, you rose. You didn't run, you stood. You didn't flinch, you smiled. Right now, as I speak these words, there are angels moving through your past, disconnecting every spiritual attachment that doesn't belong. They're moving through your present, establishing boundaries that cannot be crossed. They're moving into your future, preparing pathways that lead to promise, not pain. The depression that's been stalking you, it just lost its hunting license. The anxiety that's been choking your peace, its permissions have been revoked. The fear that's been whispering that your best days are behind you, it's been served an eviction notice signed by the King of Kings. This isn't metaphor, this isn't poetry. This is warfare happening in real time while you rest in divine lockdown. And here's what the enemy never expected: your obedience to stay inside, your willingness to separate yourself from the noise and chaos of the world, your decision to trust God's instructions even when they didn't make sense to your natural mind. That act of surrender became the key that unlocked heaven's arsenal on your behalf. While you sleep, angels circle. While you worship, they war. While you rest, they reset the spiritual atmosphere around your life. You see, some battles are won before you ever stand up to fight, because heaven stood for you first. Some victories are claimed before you ever throw a punch, because angels threw them for you. Some chains are broken before you ever pray the prayer, because your past obedience already moved God to action. The warfare isn't waiting for you to get stronger. The warfare is happening because you got still. The victory isn't coming when you feel ready. The victory is unfolding because you chose to trust when you felt afraid. Heaven is fighting this one for you. Your only assignment is to stay inside. And when these 3 days are over, When the lockdown lifts and you step back into the world, you won't be the same person who entered. You'll be walking in the aftermath of angelic victory. You'll be carrying the fragrance of supernatural breakthrough. You'll be moving in the authority of someone who has been vindicated in heaven's court. The enemy thought he could outlast your faith. He was wrong. God's patience with your process just outlasted hell's assault on your purpose. The war above your head is almost over, and you, chosen one, are about to walk in the spoils of a battle you never had to fight. Because sometimes the greatest victory is learning to be still while heaven storms on your behalf. They thought isolation would drive you insane. Instead, it drove you to your knees. You see, what looked like confinement to the world was actually divine surgery to heaven. While everyone else was fighting for their freedom outside, God was fighting for your future, inside. And chosen one, what he did in that sacred space, what he dismantled, what he rebuilt, what he reprogrammed in the depths of your soul, that's what terrifies the enemy most. Because you didn't just survive the lockdown, you were transformed by it. Listen to me carefully. God isn't just sealing your door during these 3 days. He's resetting your identity. You're not just being protected from what's outside, you're being rewritten from what's inside. Every lie you believed about yourself, every limitation you accepted, every chain of self-doubt that wrapped around your mind like spiritual barbed wire, it's all being severed by the Master's hand. You thought you were hiding from the storm. God knew you were healing from the war. For too long, you've been operating on broken software. Programmed by rejection to believe you weren't enough. Programmed by betrayal to believe you couldn't trust. Programmed by disappointment to believe your dreams were too big, your prayers too bold, your calling too impossible. But heaven looked at your cracked vessel and said, "I'm not throwing this away. I'm rebuilding it stronger." The voice that whispered you're too old is being deleted. The program that ran you, missed your chance, is being uninstalled. The virus of God forgot about you is being permanently removed from your spiritual operating system. God isn't just giving you new wine. He's giving you a new wineskin to hold it. You felt it happening, didn't you? In those quiet moments when the world went silent and your thoughts got loud. When old memories surfaced like poison being drawn from a wound. When you cried for reasons you couldn't explain and felt anger you thought you'd buried. That wasn't breakdown, that was breakthrough. God was performing spiritual surgery without anesthesia because some healing requires you to feel every cut. They told you that your sensitivity was weakness. God is revealing it as your greatest strength. They convinced you that your tears were pathetic. Heaven is showing you they were prophetic. Every sob was a prayer. Every breakdown was a breakthrough waiting to happen. Every moment you felt like you were losing your mind, you were actually finding your purpose. You see, the enemy's biggest mistake was thinking he could use your pain against you. He didn't realize that God specializes in turning scars into stars, wounds into weapons, and your deepest hurt into your greatest healing power. What broke you didn't break you, it broke you open. And what poured out wasn't weakness, it was warfare. Listen to this truth until it rewrites your soul. You were never the problem. You were the solution looking for the right problem to solve. God pulled you inside because he needed to show you something the mirror never could. He needed to reveal the giant that was sleeping inside the one who felt so small. He needed to awaken the warrior in the one who felt so weak. He needed to activate the prophet in the one who felt so silent. But first, he had to shut down the programs that were keeping you small. The voice of your mother that said you'd never amount to anything, deleted. The echo of your father that said you were a disappointment, deleted. The whisper of your ex that said you were unlovable, deleted. The shout of your boss that said you were replaceable, deleted. Every voice that programmed you to shrink, to hide, to apologize for taking up space, God is hitting the delete button with holy fire. And in that sacred silence, in that divine emptiness, he's installing something new. The voice of the one who calls you chosen. The echo of the one who calls you beloved. The whisper of the one who says you are fearfully and wonderfully made. The shout of the one who declares that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. You're being reprogrammed with heaven's truth about who you really are. The old you would have panicked at this isolation. The new you recognizes it as initiation. The old you would have seen this lockdown as punishment. The new you understands it as preparation. The old you would have counted the days until it was over. The new you is savoring every moment of transformation. Because chosen one, when God reprograms a soul, He doesn't just change your thinking, He changes your seeing. You're going to look at the same situations with different eyes. The same people who once intimidated you will seem smaller. The same problems that once paralyzed you will seem solvable. The same dreams that once felt impossible will feel inevitable. You're not the same person who walked into this season. You can't be. God made sure of that. The warfare wasn't just around you. It was within you. And while the angels were fighting for your protection, the Holy Spirit was fighting for your perception. While heaven was guarding your door, God was changing your core. While the enemy was trying to break down your walls, the Almighty was tearing down your limitations. You feel different because you are different. You think different because you've been reprogrammed. You see different because your spiritual vision has been upgraded. The old operating system couldn't handle where God is taking you, so He gave you a new one. And now, when you step out of this season, you won't step out as a survivor. You'll emerge as a system upgrade, a walking, breathing, praying demonstration of what happens when heaven gets hold of a surrendered soul and rewrites their story from the inside out. The world is about to meet the new you. And the new you carries the signature of the divine. They thought chaos would confuse you. Instead, it confirmed everything. You've been sitting in this sacred lockdown for hours now, maybe even a full day, and suddenly, like clockwork, everything starts calling your name. The phone rings with that urgent voice on the other end. The neighbor needs help just this once. Your mind starts racing with 1,000 reasons why you should step outside, just for a moment, just to handle one small thing. And in that moment, beloved, you're witnessing spiritual warfare at its most cunning. You see, the enemy doesn't always come dressed in obvious evil. He rarely shows up with horns and a pitchfork. No, his most lethal weapon is disguised as necessity. He whispers through the voice of obligation. He masquerades as responsibility. He shows up wearing the mask of someone who needs you, right now, this very second. But here's what he's banking on that you don't recognize the timing. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the louder the distractions become. The enemy doesn't waste his ammunition on people who aren't dangerous. He doesn't deploy his finest strategies against those who pose no threat. But you've been marked as a threat to his kingdom. Your obedience in these 3 days isn't just personal rebellion, it's generational warfare. That's why everything suddenly feels urgent the moment you commit to staying still. Your adult children who haven't called in weeks suddenly need your wisdom today. The friend who disappeared during your darkest hour suddenly has a crisis only you can solve. The errands that could wait a month suddenly feel like life or death emergencies. The emotions you thought you'd processed start flooding back with vengeance. This is not coincidence. This is spiritual sabotage. Hell doesn't fear your warfare. It fears your stillness. Because when you stop moving, God starts moving. When you cease striving, heaven starts supplying. When you quit reacting to every emergency, you finally hear the one voice that matters, the voice of the Almighty, calling you deeper into His presence, deeper into His plan, deeper into the destiny that's been waiting for your complete surrender. But here's where it gets dangerous, chosen one. Here's where one small compromise can cost you everything. The enemy knows he can't force you out of this divine lockdown, so instead, he tries to convince you that just one quick trip won't matter. Just one phone call, just one errand, just one yes to someone else's urgency. But what he's not telling you is this: spiritual assignments operate on divine timing, not human convenience. There are windows that open once and close forever. There are moments when heaven pours out blessings that can't be repeated or rescheduled. There are inheritances that can only be received by those who remain in position when the time comes. Abraham had to stay on the mountain until the ram appeared. Noah had to stay in the ark until the dove returned with the olive branch. The disciples had to stay in the upper room until the Holy Spirit fell. And you have to stay hidden until God says it's time to emerge. One step outside could forfeit what 3 days of obedience was meant to release. Think about that. 3 days of sacrifice. 3 days of saying no to the world's demands. 3 days of choosing God's voice over every other voice. And the enemy wants to rob it all with one moment of distraction, one act of false urgency, one guilt trip disguised as love. You weren't called to answer every call. You were called to obey the one. The phone can ring, let it ring. The text can come, let it wait. The neighbor can knock, let someone else answer. The emotion can surge. Let it pass through you like a storm cloud that has no power to change the sky. Because right now, in this moment, you are not available to anyone's emergency except God's assignment. You are not responsible for anyone's crisis except your own calling. You are not obligated to anyone's timeline except heaven's calendar. And here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Every distraction you resist is making you stronger. Every urgent call you don't answer is deepening your discernment. Every fake emergency you refuse to engage is proving to heaven that you can be trusted with real authority. God is watching how you handle interruption, because if you can't protect your alignment during 3 days of intentional lockdown, how can He trust you with the global platform He's preparing for you? If you can't say no to distractions during a sacred pause, how can He trust you to say no to compromise when the world is watching? This is your test of spiritual maturity. Not just your faith, but your focus. Not just your belief, but your boundaries. Not just your love for God, but your ability to love Him more than the approval of people. The distractions will get louder before they get quieter. The pressure will intensify before it breaks. The enemy will pull out his finest weapons: guilt, fear, obligation, false responsibility, because he knows his time is running out. But you've already won this battle by recognizing it for what it is. You're not being rude by staying hidden. You're being obedient. You're not being selfish by guarding your peace. You're being strategic. You're not abandoning your responsibilities. You're prioritizing your assignment. And when these 3 days are over, when you emerge from this divine lockdown with fresh fire, new authority, and unshakable clarity, everyone who tried to pull you out of position will see exactly why God needed you to stay in. The inheritance you're protecting isn't just financial, it's spiritual, it's generational. It's the difference between living in God's overflow and scraping by on human effort for the rest of your life. So let the phone ring. Let the world wonder where you are. Let the distractions come and go like waves against a lighthouse that refuses to move. You are anchored in something higher than human urgency. You are rooted in divine timing. You are hidden in the secret place of the Most High, and no distraction, no matter how urgent it sounds, can touch what God is building in the silence. Hell doesn't fear your warfare, it fears your stillness. And you, beloved chosen one, have chosen to be still and know that He is God. The distractions came to derail you, but instead, they confirmed that you're exactly where you need to be. They thought silence would drive you crazy. Instead, it drove you deeper. You know what's happening right now, don't you? In the quiet of your obedience, in the sacred pause of these 3 days, something ancient is stirring, not around you, inside you. Heaven isn't just protecting you during this lockdown. Heaven is downloading into you. Every moment you've spent in stillness, every prayer whispered in the dark, every tear that fell when no one was watching, it was all preparation for this. The scroll of your destiny is opening, and God Himself is writing the next chapter with fire. Listen to me carefully. You are not waiting. You are downloading. Your home has become a scroll room. The ink is fire. The author is divine. And what's being written on your heart right now will determine not just your future, but the future of everyone connected to your prayers. This isn't rest. This is revelation. This isn't pause. This is preparation. God is speaking strategies into your spirit that no seminary could teach, no book could contain, no man could comprehend. But you were chosen to receive them. They said you were getting older, that your best days were behind you. God laughs at their ignorance. While they were busy writing you off, heaven was writing you in. Into plans, into purposes, into assignments that would make angels stand at attention. You see, the enemy made a critical mistake. He thought your gray hair meant your fire was dying. He thought your wrinkles meant your wisdom was waning. He thought your slower step meant your spirit was surrendering. He was wrong about everything. Age isn't your limitation, it's your qualification. The years haven't weakened you. They've weaponized you with experience, with endurance, with a knowing that only comes through surviving what should have destroyed you. Right now, in the silence of these sacred days, God is revealing assignments that have been sealed until this moment. You're feeling it, aren't you? That stirring in your chest, that fire in your bones, that knowing in your knower that something massive is about to shift. Don't dismiss it as imagination. Don't explain it away as wishful thinking. That's divine intelligence being downloaded directly into your spirit. The same God who gave Noah blueprints for the ark, who gave Moses instructions for the tabernacle, who gave David strategies for victory. That same God is speaking blueprints into your soul. Your journal is about to become holy ground. Write everything down. Every thought that drops into your spirit during these days is sacred cargo. Every vision that flashes across your mind is a divine photograph. Every instruction that whispers in your heart is a kingdom assignment. Don't filter it through logic. Don't edit it through doubt. Just write, because what God is revealing to you now will make sense later, but only if you capture it in the moment. The enemy wants you to dismiss these downloads as random thoughts, but your spirit knows better. This is how God speaks to his chosen ones, not in thunderclaps, but in the transfer of supernatural intelligence. They underestimated the power of a surrendered vessel. Their mistake is about to become your miracle. For years, you've been carrying something you couldn't name. A burden, a knowing, a weight that others couldn't understand. You thought it was a curse. Heaven calls it preparation. Every sleepless night when you carried the weight of others in prayer. Every moment you interceded for a world that didn't even know your name. Every tear you cried for breakthrough that seemed to never come. It was all building to this moment. You weren't just praying, you were preparing. You weren't just believing, you were being positioned. And now, in the quiet sanctuary of these 3 days, all that spiritual investment is about to pay dividends. The scroll is opening, and your name is written at the top of every page. This is your season of supernatural clarity. The confusion that clouded your vision is lifting like morning fog. The questions that haunted your nights are being answered in ways that bypass your intellect and land directly in your spirit. You're beginning to see with heaven's eyes, think with heaven's mind, move with heaven's timing. This isn't enlightenment, this is entrustment. God is entrusting you with revelation that will shift your world and everyone in it. The strategies being downloaded into your spirit aren't just for your survival, they're for your success. They're for your elevation. They're for your vindication. What they meant for evil, God is rewriting for victory. Every setback is being transformed into a setup. Listen to the voice that's been trying to get your attention for months. That gentle nudge toward a new direction. That persistent thought about reaching out to someone. That vision that keeps replaying in your mind. That's not your imagination running wild, that's heaven running interference for your breakthrough. God is giving you inside information about what's coming next. He's showing you moves to make, connections to pursue, words to speak, silence to keep. Your obedience to these divine downloads will determine whether you participate in your miracle or merely witness it from a distance. The scroll is opening wider now. Can you feel it burning in your chest? This fire, you're feeling this holy restlessness, this divine agitation. It's not anxiety, it's anticipation. Your spirit recognizes what your mind hasn't fully grasped yet. You're being prepared for something unprecedented, something that will require every lesson you've learned, every tear you've cried, every prayer you've prayed. The years haven't been wasted, they've been invested. And now it's time to see the return on that investment. God is about to give you clarity so sharp, it cuts through deception like a sword. Wisdom so deep, it intimidates the enemy. Authority so undeniable, it commands respect from heaven and earth. They tried to convince you that your voice didn't matter. Heaven is about to prove them wrong. The downloads coming to you now aren't just personal revelation, they're prophetic ammunition. Words that will slice through lies, truths that will topple strongholds, instructions that will unlock doors that have been sealed for generations. You're not just receiving information, you're receiving transformation. The very act of downloading this divine intelligence is changing your spiritual DNA. You're becoming a vessel capable of containing and releasing heaven's strategies on earth. Your home isn't just your sanctuary during these 3 days. It's your situation room. God is briefing you for battle, not the kind fought with flesh and blood, but the kind waged in the realm of the spirit. You're being given battle plans that guarantee victory before the first shot is fired. Strategies so brilliant they could only come from the mind of God. Instructions so precise they leave no room for failure. Your obedience to what's being downloaded now will determine whether you walk into your next season as a survivor or as a conqueror. The scroll is fully open now. The fire is no longer a flicker, it's a flame. And what's written there, chosen one? What's burning in your heart right now? What's downloading into your spirit in these sacred moments of isolation? This is your marching orders for victory. This is your divine intelligence briefing. This is heaven's way of saying, your preparation is complete, your assignment is clear, your victory is guaranteed. The scroll has opened inside you. Now let the fire burn away everything that doesn't align with what God has written. Your breakthrough isn't coming. It's already here, written in fire across the pages of your surrendered heart. They thought they had you cornered. They thought isolation would be your breaking point. They gathered in their dark chambers, rubbing their hands together, whispering, finally, we have the chosen one alone, defenseless, cut off from their people. But they didn't realize something crucial about you. You've never been more dangerous than when you're alone with God. You see, beloved, what looked like a divine lockdown to protect you was actually a divine setup to expose them. God didn't hide you from the battle. He positioned you as the bait. And while you sat in holy obedience, praying in your living room, fasting in your kitchen, worshiping in your bedroom, the enemy took the bait, hook, line, and sinker. They came out of hiding. They showed their true faces. They revealed their assignments. They exposed their networks. They thought you were trapped, but you were actually the trap. And now heaven is springing it shut. You became the snare, and the serpent just snapped its own neck. The hunter becomes the hunted. For decades, you've felt hunted, stalked by failure, chased by disappointment, cornered by circumstances that made no sense. Every time you tried to rise, something pushed you back down. Every time you found your footing, the ground shifted beneath you. You started to believe you were cursed. You started to think maybe God had forgotten your address. Maybe your prayers were bouncing off the ceiling. Maybe you really were just unlucky. But you never stopped praying, did you? Even when your voice cracked with exhaustion, even when your tears ran dry, even when hope felt like a foreign language you used to speak but forgot. And that consistency, that stubborn, beautiful, holy consistency, was weaving something in the spirit realm you couldn't see. Every midnight prayer was a thread. Every whispered "help me" Jesus was another strand. Every moment you chose worship over worry, faith over fear, surrender over self-pity. You were weaving a net, a divine net, and the enemy had no idea he was swimming straight into it. You thought you were the prey, but God was training you to be the predator. The hunter just became the hunted, and they never saw it coming. Silence as a weapon. Your silence during these 3 days wasn't weakness, it was warfare. While others posted their opinions, you held your tongue. While others argued and debated, you turned off the noise. While others demanded answers, you sat in the question, and that silence, that holy, obedient, trusting silence, became the most powerful weapon in heaven's arsenal. You see, the enemy thrives on noise. Chaos feeds him. Confusion strengthens him. He needs you, reactive, emotional, scattered, afraid. But when you go silent, when you disappear into God's presence, when you become untouchable, unreachable, unmovable, he panics. Because silence means you're listening to someone else, and the someone else you're listening to happens to be the one who holds his leash. Your silence forced him to get louder. Your peace made him more desperate. Your stillness drove him to make reckless moves. And every reckless move was being recorded in heaven's courtroom as evidence of his illegal activity in your life. God used your silence to draw out the enemy's voice. And now heaven has everything on tape. The prosecution rests. The verdict is in. Guilty on all counts. They thought they were setting you up for spiritual slaughter during this lockdown. They marshaled their forces. They activated every sleeper agent. They called in favors from principalities you've never even heard of. The assignment was clear. Finish the chosen one while they're isolated and vulnerable. But here's what they didn't understand about God's strategy. You weren't the target. You were the trigger. Every demon that came against you during these 3 days exposed itself. Every witch that sent a curse revealed their location. Every false prophet that spoke against you showed their true allegiance. Every person that betrayed you unveiled their spiritual assignment. God used you as holy bait to flush out every enemy operative in your vicinity. And now They're all exposed, marked, tagged, identified. You thought you were hiding from destruction, but you were actually drawing destruction toward you so God could destroy it in front of your eyes. The decoy just became the destroyer, and the enemy's entire infrastructure is crumbling. Right now, as I speak these words, heaven's justice system is executing judgment on every force that came against you during this sacred lockdown. That person who betrayed you last month, their influence is being cut off at the root. That family member who mocked your faith, their voice is losing power. That situation that seemed impossible, it's about to shift so dramatically you'll question if you're dreaming. This isn't revenge, this is justice, and there's a difference. Revenge is personal. Justice is divine. Revenge strikes in anger. Justice moves in love. Revenge seeks to hurt. Justice seeks to heal. And the healing that's about to flood your life will wash away years of accumulated pain in a matter of days. You've been faithful in the darkness. Now watch God be faithful in the light. You've sown in tears. Now reap in joy. You've walked through the valley. Now inherit the mountain. Divine justice doesn't just restore what was stolen. It multiplies it. It compounds it. It adds interest to every tear you shed in secret. Get ready for overflow. Get ready for vindication. Get ready for the kind of restoration that makes people ask, "What happened to you?" The enemy made one crucial miscalculation. He thought your greatest weakness was your isolation. He thought if he could just get you alone, cut off from encouragement, separated from community, drowning in silence, you would break. But he forgot something vital about chosen ones. You don't break. You build. You don't crack under pressure. You crystallize. You don't collapse in the fire. You become refined gold. The enemy's fatal mistake was thinking your power came from people, from circumstances, from external validation, but your power comes from within, from the one who lives inside you, from the spirit that has been preparing you for this exact moment since before you were born. When he isolated you, he actually concentrated your power. When he removed the distractions, he inadvertently focused your prayer life. When he cleared the room, he gave you unlimited access to the throne room. The serpent thought he was swallowing you whole, but you turned out to be the poison that's now coursing through his system, shutting down every assignment he's ever launched against God's people. You didn't just survive the trap, you became the trap, and his bite was fatal to him. At the end of these 3 days, when the dust settles and the smoke clears, there will be only one figure left standing in the spiritual battlefield. You. Not because you're the strongest, not because you're the smartest, not because you're the most qualified, but because you're the most surrendered. And surrender, beloved, is the ultimate weapon. Surrender confuses the enemy because he can't fight what won't fight back. He can't defeat what's already been defeated. He can't destroy what's already died to itself. Your surrender during this lockdown wasn't retreat. It was the most aggressive spiritual warfare you've ever engaged in. Because when you surrender to God, you're not giving up your power. You're plugging into unlimited power. The chosen one stands alone and wins, not through force but through faith, not through struggle but through stillness, not through noise but through the kind of quiet confidence that makes demons flee and angels applaud. You thought this lockdown was about survival, but it was actually about victory. Your victory, heaven's victory, light's victory over darkness, truth's victory over lies, love's victory over fear. The trap has been sprung. The enemy has been caught. And you beautiful, chosen, powerful child of the Most High, you're about to walk into the most blessed season of your entire life. Because God didn't hide you from danger. He used you to draw it out and destroy it. And that, beloved, is the difference between being chosen and being ordinary. The ordinary run from battle. The chosen become the battle, and heaven always wins.